by film.
5,
Stand by music.
4,
Stand by announce.
3, 2, 1.
And fade up.
Sneaky little Robinsons.
Spider-Man, hero or menace?
Deer Indigo.
Dobby the house elf.
Who holds sway over the 5 points?
I swear to God, I'll pistol whip the next guy that says shenanigans.
This is my family.
There's a hole in this cake.
You concur?
I'm a bloody island. I'm bloody Ibiza.
How about new, you crazy Dutch bastard?
All right, so welcome everyone to a new year, a new season, and a new episode of 20 Years for Beers. We are a podcast dedicated to rewatching movies from 2 decades ago while simultaneously enjoying a minimum of 4 modern beers. My name is Steve, and this is my big brother,
Tim.
And we are coming to you from Minneapolis, Minnesota. We have left 2001 movies in our wake and are beginning our epic journey into the films of 2002. For the full list of films we are looking to cover, head over to 20years4beers.com. But for our first episode of the new year, we figured why not go with the highest grossing film of 2002, and probably the one that started it all, sorry X-Men, in terms of the Marvel comic universe, at least, or Marvel Cinematic Universe, that we know now. We will be starting with 2002's Spider-Man. For those of you unaware of the story, I start by saying, seriously?
Yeah. How do you decorate the cave you live in?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, come on. Arguably, there are 3 origin stories that are almost, or that I would say, arguably, there are 3 origin stories that almost everyone knows.
Yeah.
Superman, Batman, and Spider-Man.
Totally.
Like, I don't care if you've seen the movies or shows, it doesn't matter. Like, you should know this. But if I have to, I have to.
Gotta do it.
Spider-Man is the story of Peter Parker, a nerdy, shy high school student who is bitten by a genetically modified spider on a class field trip, naturally. The bite gives Peter spider-like abilities that he eventually must use to fight evil as a superhero after tragedy comes to his family.
They're crap. Crap. Mega crap. I'll give you $200 for all of them.
That seems a little low.
Take them somewhere else then.
Sir, your wife says the tile you ordered for the foyer is out of stock.
Tell her we'll just put a rug there. Sit down. Give me that. I'll give you $300. That's a standard freelance fee. Tear up page 1, run that photo instead.
Headline?
Spider-Man, hero or menace? Exclusive Daily Bugle photos.
Menace. He was protecting that armored
I'll tell
car.
you what, Atticus, you take the pictures, I'll make up the headlines, okay? All right? That okay with you?
Yes, sir.
Goody. Give this to the girl up front, just so you get paid.
I'd like a job, sir.
No jobs. Freelance. Best thing in the world for a kid your age. You bring me some more shots of that newspaper-selling clown, maybe I'll take him off your hands. But I never said you have a job. Meat. I'll send you a nice box of Christmas meat. Best I can do. Get out of here. Bring me more photos.
Hi. Mr. Jameson told me to give that to you.
Welcome to the Daily Bugle.
Thank you.
The film is directed by Sam Raimi, written by David Coop, and stars Tobey Maguire as Parker, Kirsten Dunst, James Franco, Willem Dafoe, Rosemary Harris, and J.K. Simmons. You have a memory of Spider-Man, Tim, or?
I saw it opening weekend.
Sure.
With, I think when it came out, it was like just the near end of...
It was May 3rd, 2002, so
yeah,
it'd be
like
the end of...
my senior year of college. I know I went with some friends to the theater, and just, it was excitement, and everybody, like all the reviews were saying such great things about it, and just loved it. It was one of those movies that I do remember sitting there and thinking, yeah, fantastic job of translating it to the screen in terms of how, I was thinking like the web slinging, if it's going to be bad graphics or whatever it was. So yeah, I remember having a blast and totally enjoying it. How about you?
When was the last time you saw it?
The original, probably 10 years. I mean, the second one was so much better.
Yeah.
In my opinion, of this series.
Yeah.
I've seen that more than the first one. The first is... Yeah, it's been a long time, I would say. And obviously the newest ones in the MCU are far superior. But the first one, yeah, I'm excited to see it again.
Yeah, I definitely saw it opening weekend as well. And I remember thinking, and we liked X-Men in the theater, so I'm a little bit like, we'll see what happens here. But same thing. You're just kind of like, this was a ton of fun, and this is kind of what comic book movies should be, and as with X-Men was as well. But it's definitely been before the MCU that I would have seen. I don't think I've watched it since Iron Man,
Sure.
In 2008. So it's been at least about that long. So I'm excited to see it. I mean, I've seen the newest Spider-Man. You have not.
That's correct.
So it'll be kind of curious to see. I don't think there'll be any necessarily callbacks, but I'm not sure if there will, so I'm kind of curious to watch it like that. So I'm really excited. Our first segment, as usual, then, is Drinking Buddies.
Come on, not my fucking beer.
Where we present the 4 beers we will be drinking while rewatching our film. And since we love beer here at 20/4, we refer to them as our buddies. Tim will be taking us through this one. So, Tim, who are our buddies?
For this episode, we were thinking about like theme options, and it was tough when it came to the styles, and then we kind of had an epiphany of, Spider-Man. They always call him the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
That's right.
How about we just find options that are all in the neighborhood? So we've chose 4 breweries that are primarily based around residential areas.
Yeah,
kind of your local neighborhood watering hole if you were drinking hopped water. And so we got the first one here from Town Hall Brewery, which has a few locations in the cities. Their Hoppy Trotter IPA, and it does not list any of the stuff. It's just a nice label from the restaurant. So I don't know what hops or anything are in there, but it's Hoppy Trotter.
Yeah, we'll look it up.
IPA. And then
good research, Tim.
Yeah, I try. Actually, I can. Let me bring up as we're talking here. The website has their information. It's a hopped up IPA with German, Australian, and Pacific Northwest hops. That's the one. German, so
Australian.
This is why I love these, like, again, the local watering hole options. It's like, hey guys, it's just beer.
Yeah.
Here's the style. Like, you don't need the whole tasting notes. Just enjoy it.
Well, especially Town Hall. Yeah.
Yes. And then we have Back Channel Brewing out of Lake Minnetonka area. Their Trailblaze American Porter.
Mm-hmm.
And we have from Unmapped out of Minnetonka, Minnesota. They're as opposed to other Minnetonkas.
Right.
Their St. Nick's Imperial Red Ale. Then recently opened during the pandemic, so kudos to them for giving it a shot. Wooden Ship Brewing Company out of Minneapolis. They're in the, it says actually proudly brewing in the Linden Hills neighborhood.
I'm very proud of that.
Look at that. Yep. All about the neighborhood. It's actually, it's a really cool location.
Yep.
Their Coconut Milk Stout is going to do the last for us. So those are our drinking buddies.
All right. So our next segment is the Social Network.
If you guys were the inventors of Facebook, you'd have invented Facebook.
Where we take a look back at the critical and or fan reception from 20 years ago. I have a review from Empire Magazine.
I do not have that.
Nice. Ian, you never know with that. Freer from Empire Magazine gave it 4 out of 5 stars.
Oh, wow.
Said, amid all the comic book action, director Raimi preserves Spider-Man's, both character and movie, humanity. Maguire effortlessly makes the transition from alpha nerd to action man with skill and aplomb. Love that word.
Ooh.
Playing niftily on his indie persona, he invests Peter with a winning warmth while remaining believable as someone uneasy in the confines of his own skin. If occasionally a dodgy CGI shot slips through the net, the realization of Spider-Man cavorting through a bustling metropolis, barely in control of his own trajectory, is a spandex ballet so exuberant and damn right cool that it doesn't matter.
Wow.
4 out of 5 stars. I did see some that were not necessarily like the best reviews, but
sure.
No, I like that one.
That's a really good one. Exuberant. The IMDb rating is 7.3 out of 10, which honestly seems a bit low, but again, not having seen it for a while, we'll see. Yep. Sam Alice of Boston Globe said, Director Raimi has crafted a complicated hero's journey, which is a welcome relief from the usual two-dimensional offerings. This might be one of my favorite reviewers' names of all time.
Ooh.
Hollywood Reporter Kirk Honeycutt.
Yeah. I saw that online too. Yeah.
What an amazing name. I was like,
Yeah.
hi, my name is Kirk Honeycutt.
Mm-hmm.
Guileless and charming with a perpetual look of startled bewilderment at the superpowers he possesses, Maguire is perfect as an ordinary guy with a big secret. And Roger Ebert, 2.5 out of 4 stars, said the origin story is well told, and the characters will not disappoint anyone who values the original comic books. It's in the action sequences, however, that things fall apart. Academy Awards that year was up for 2 nominations for Best Visual Effects and Best Sound Mixing.
I was a little surprised, and I guess I knew this at the time, but I kind of thought Hero by Chad Kroeger, of Nickelback, they wrote that for this movie.
Oh, yeah.
And I was a little surprised it wasn't up that year, because I remember when it came out and it was like the video was out and people were like, oh my gosh, it's going to win Best Song and this kind of stuff, and it wasn't even nominated or whatever.
Nope.
Yeah, but then you look like, they did have to nominate Paul Simon for the Wild Thornberrys movie. So, and Frida had a song nominated for it.
Well,
so,
that's true, it did.
They had already done Aerosmith a couple years prior for Armageddon, so they had got their rock music out.
Yes.
But it did, ultimately, Lose Yourself won. So, I can't give them too much crap about rock music when they did give it to a rapper. So
yeah.
I was a little surprised about that. So we are now going to take a pause and rewatch Spider-Man. Please watch along with us if you are so inclined. But if not, I will include a clip or two next. Here is 2002's Spider-Man.
Thanks for the ride, Uncle
Oh,
Ben.
wait a minute, Peter. We need to talk.
Well, we can talk later.
Well, we can talk now, if you let me.
What do we have to talk about? Why now?
Because we haven't talked at all for so long. Your Aunt May and I don't even know who you are anymore. You shirk your chores. You have all those weird experiments in your room. You start fights at school.
I didn't start that fight. I told you that.
Yeah, well, you sure as hell finished.
What was I supposed to do? Run away?
No, you're not supposed to run away. But Pete, look, you're changing. I know. I went through exactly the same thing at your age.
No, not exactly.
Peter. These are the years when a man changes into the man he's going to become the rest of his life. Just be careful who you change into. This guy, Flash Thompson, he probably deserved what happened. But just because you can beat him up doesn't give you the right to. Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
What if it was possible to get local, fresh groceries delivered right to your front door? It is possible with Instacart. Instacart can deliver groceries in as fast as 1 hour, plus they have unlimited grocery deliveries for one low monthly fee. None of those per-order fees from other services. First-time orders get free delivery on orders over $35. Follow the link in the show notes. That lets Instacart know we sent you and helps support our show. Now back to our reaction segment of 20 Years, 4 Beers. All right, so welcome back to 20 Years, 4 Beers, where we have just finished rewatching Spider-Man. As usual, we jump right into our reaction segment that we call High Fidelity.
Top 5 side ones, track ones.
Where we discuss our top takeaways of any kind from rewatching the film. I am sure, considering our love of all things MCU, we will have a lot to say, so let's hop right in. Do you have any sort of initial thoughts? What your first take? What do you think?
Quick thing was, I am so happy this held up.
No kidding. Yeah.
I was so
we were
surprised.
So disappointed by X-Men.
X-Men was such a dumpster fire of slow and just didn't work.
I was I remember the terrible lines in X-Men. There are terrible lines in this too, and yet they're just more campy and fun, and it's way more enjoyable.
Totally holds up.
Yeah.
And to consider this came out at a time when the graphics, some of the reviews talked about the graphics kind of, or the fight effects.
Yeah, they're still not great.
No, they're not great, but they're not, they're very video gamey.
Yeah.
Which I can put up with. Not bad in the sense of, oh my God, that looks like straight garbage. It just looked like, it's computer effects.
Yep.
So but oh man, first reaction was, thank God that it held up. It was so fun and enjoyable and hit me in ways I didn't remember that I'll talk through. But overall, just quick. Yeah, it was
same
very
for
good.
Me. Actually, that was my first point, really, was that it was awesome how well it held up and how it seems to really have a lot of comic book movies, like comic book tropes for current movies, like were started by this. And I don't necessarily have exact examples, but just it felt similar to everything that's come since from a Marvel standpoint, for sure.
Yes.
And yet they weren't copying anything. It was just like we're telling the story, and it's kind of like some wink moments. And I love that, there were references to, Dr. Connors.
Yes.
And obviously Flash is in there, and then you've got Eddie, Brock, and you've got all these other things that they're just throwaway lines, and you're like,
but fans, fans would know, like,
service. Yeah, really well done. Iconic moments. We talked while we were watching it too. I think that so often you watch movies and you're like, oh, this moment became, and it was certainly mocked along the way, like the upside down kiss, or and so some of those you just go, but they're still iconic, and they're not stupid.
No,
20 years later. So that was actually my first point, was just so good at setting up the world.
Yes,
it's just love it.
Yes, it was just so pleasant to watch and go, yeah, this is why we enjoyed it when it first came out. It was so well done. So one thing that stood out to me was they do such a good job of experiencing that, Peter coming into his powers after he's bitten, and the little things like his sticky hands with the bus banner, and then at school the first morning of feeling his kind of spidey sense and his physicality changing. Yeah, that it's just a really well done series of events that plays out there, or like when he catches the stuff that's falling down on the tray, that, when he's awkward and kind of an outcast in some ways, or just a dorky kid before, seeing him merge through that and come out of it as that superhero is such a great progression. And those, I think, were so arguably well done that they haven't really replicated any part of his origin. I mean, he's had like 9 films or whatever. That origin story piece of him coming into the powers hasn't really ever been done before, or since then.
Yeah, they do it in the
Garfield one. Yep. A little bit, but nothing. I mean, hell, the current one, they never do it. No, it's just like he's Spider-Man. Yep. So I really respect this movie for taking that time to see that origin story aspect of, it's not just a family tragedy, but it's him coming into his powers that, you're right, so many other movies thereafter replicated in many ways. I mean, Batman Begins was, so watching this be like, almost like beat for beat as far as coming into this type of experience for that character. So it was a really solid kind of that origin story piece, which is great. So,
but even then, like, I like that he was still awkward after.
Yes.
Like, he didn't suddenly turn into some Casanova dude.
Totally.
Which, again, is one of the stupidest part of 3,
the third
right?
One, yes.
But just like that, like, he is still an awkward nerd. Like, he is. Just because he's strong and has superpowers does not mean his personality is suddenly not awkward. And he can't talk to MJ even after that. Like, he's not suddenly this. I like that too. I thought, thinking back on it, I thought there was way more setup. I always thought there was more, and then within like 10 minutes, he's already been bitten, and Norman's already
same night
gassed.
Yes,
I was like, what? Yeah. Like, now there's a gap between when that happens there to when the real superhero stuff happens.
Yes,
but I used to think there was not a lot of, or I thought there was a ton of that sort of like beginning story,
the story building,
right?
Yeah,
and actually, it's not.
No,
he's up. He's chasing the bus, and they're on their way to the spider. Like, I was like, oh, okay.
They're at Columbia University. Right, here you go. Get bit right away. Yes.
And to your point about the most recent trilogy, they were praised for ignoring the origin story.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. It's like halfway through the film when the superhero stuff really kind of starts. But that doesn't mean that's a bad thing. And actually, it still is build up, but it's not build up to the bite. It's built up to his decision to start doing good.
Yes. Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, no, he's still in high school for quite a bit. as he's grappling with it, and then graduates and has a commencement ceremony, and then that's where it like has that second half pivot to like pre and post, kind of like now he's leaning into the superhero aspect. Another thing for me was I always thought, I remember watching it was an odd choice to have at the time. I felt like to have the webs be, manufactured by Parker and coming out of his arms. And it always felt like this is really weird to have him be so impacted by it that he would just like, oh, I'm shooting webs. But I've almost like a retroactive appreciation of what they've done in the MCU, where Parker's suits and his gear are primarily because of Tony Stark, solely because of him, and what they've been able to lean into that with that. That I appreciate the choice now because it really works well with the story of Parker being taken care of by his aunt and uncle, the economic struggles they talk about in the movie where Ben gets laid off after like a 35-year career. And it's the challenge of they're not a family of means or wealth. And if it was all of a sudden some kid, despite how smart he is, like manufacturing some tensile strength, webs, even the suit's a bit elaborate for some dude just like kind of sewing it in his
But they
office.
don't even show you.
No.
They don't even bother to show
like
you
the manufacturing.
him
He just
sewing it.
He
just
has
did
it. Yep, he has it.
Accept it.
But I appreciate now in retrospect that they made a smart choice, I think, of saying, you know what, we couldn't even explain how this kid would somehow figure out this type of technology for the webs, which I think in the Garfield version, they kind of talk about it. That was kind of the purpose of the spiders and how they were kind of manufacturing them. But anyway, that being said, I appreciate
Tom
now.
Holland is a genius.
Yes.
So, yep.
This was a cool thing of he's a really smart kid, can figure it out, but he's just grappling with these are coming out of his arms that at the time I felt was I didn't like, I must admit, when I first saw it. But now in retrospect with what they've built the character around, I really appreciate that storyline.
I had a question, which was, why do villains always insist on making it personal?
Yeah.
They always do it.
Yep.
And you're like, I understand, but like, you got this guy down, and what do? You start throwing shade at the family or like the loved ones. And you're like, what do you think is going to happen here? They're always going to rise up and beat you. You are giving them strength.
Yes. Yeah.
Come on, man. So you have them down and you're like, I'm going to kill all your family and I'm going to make it slow. And you're like, oh, I'm just going to lay down and take it now.
In light of that new information, I'm totally going to resign to my fate.
Quick. Yeah.
No, I totally agree. It's a funny thing. We're like, but to that point, okay.
It's not just this is they always make it personal at the end. And then you're like, what are you doing?
Yes.
I'm not a villain. I could if I wanted to, but I'm not a villain. But I would not make it personal.
No.
You just kill him.
Yeah. To not inspire some type of retribution right now. In your final waning moments, I'm going to give you that last element of energy to defend your family.
The only time you do it is like if you actually stab them and you get the death kill, then you're like, suck on that, man.
As you're dying, I want you to know, I'm going to destroy your family.
Yeah, there you go. That's
as opposed to, you have a moment
to stab you. But not now.
So I would say that to that point, I found watching it now that, and not to compare it to the MCU because this was a far in advance precursor.
That's not a fair.
No.
But I get what you're saying.
But to me, it was, Norman Osborn, his murderous actions right away, I feel like are such a quick disservice to the character arc that I don't feel he's sympathetic at all. And I feel like so much of the MCU, again, not to compare apples to oranges, but they do a great job of having that be such an area that they excel at, of having villains be empathetic, sympathetic, where you can kind of somewhat see where they're coming from. But he comes in right away after the experiment and he's just kills the doctor. And then the next day, the people are like, oh my gosh, this guy's dead and the suit and the glider are gone.
Yeah. Are there no cameras?
Exactly. They have no security cameras. It's high, security place. Doesn't have cameras. Like, I don't know what happened. And, had they waited a bit for like Osborn to kind of go murderous, I feel like the crux was when the board was going to say, hey, we're going to sell your company and you're done in 30 days. That to me was like the snap point where I built this world and these things. And even after he has this murderous escapade through the Unity Festival or whatever, he still has these voices in his head. I'm like, they should have shifted the whole timeline for Norman Osborn's shift into madness, where the stuff that came after he was already killing people. And then these voices come out. It's like, I think you kind of misedited this in hindsight, where if you had put that stuff earlier, where you could see that descent to madness, far more of an impact, I think, from a viewer that, I don't know. I just really felt like the Jekyll and Hyde aspects were after he had already kind of become the Hyde character. So it's like, well, you kind of missed your mark of having that duality before. That I'd feel like had they really had, especially this is Spider-Man's first nemesis in these storylines. It was pretty ineffective. And I think Willem Dafoe is really great.
Yeah, especially the Thanksgiving scene. At that point, you've already fought, and you're just kind of like, this is not the reveal that you're hoping it to be.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I see that.
It misses the mark. It's
not that it's bad. It's just it doesn't
land the punch that they wanted to. We're like, oh my gosh, like he figures it out. And I feel like they could have had so much of a shift in some of these elements with the main villain that would have been far more effective, because right off the bat, he gets the gas and he kills somebody. Well, that's just, okay. That's not really that impactful to me. So anyway, I just felt like a bit of a quibble there as far as that type of villainous journey.
But even the military scene where he blows up the bunker and stuff like that makes sense, where that would have been happening sort of in his sleep.
Yes.
But no, I agree with you from the Unity Festival on.
Yeah.
Like at that point, he is Goblin. Like he is disjointed.
Yes.
And now I'm supposed to see them at Thanksgiving as if they're going to have some sort of like great meeting. Like a lot of that could have happened before.
Yes.
So yeah, I agree. On the editing part, I do agree for sure.
Yeah, I just felt like they were kind of shifting some of that type of arc. They didn't quite know how to handle that, I think. David Coop.
Well, we'll talk about him in a little bit, but one thing I kind of had forgotten was how much I appreciated that it is not an apocalyptic, huge
world ending
CGI ending.
Yes.
You know, like there's not, even 2 doesn't do that much. You know, 3 gets way bigger, and then the MCU, the one knock on the MCU is often, it becomes a huge CGI event at the end.
Yes.
And whereas this is like the complete opposite, right? I mean, you're just like, this is just 2 guys fighting it out in a abandoned building.
Yeah.
Really appreciate that about, like, it really, to me, they wanted to make it the quote friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and like same thing. Like it's just, you should be the friendly neighborhood villain as well. Like just sort of keep it in. And I really appreciate that about this movie, where it's the first, and they really could have gone big. You know, reportedly James Cameron, who had been like working on a Spider-Man in the 90s or whatever, he wanted it to be Sandman, and I'm like, in the freaking 90s, like, come on, man, what would you have been able to do with Sandman?
How would you have done
90s?
that?
Like,
exactly.
Although The Mummy is in the 90s and they do a good job with sand, but you know,
98,
off topic. But my point, like, it's just making it real, making it an actor in a suit.
Yes,
it's actually Dafoe in the suit as well. Like, makes it much more realistic and much more like grounded in realism.
Yes,
as opposed to any other of these like grandiose apocalyptic, we're all gonna die. No, you're not. If Green Goblin kills Spider-Man, nobody else is gonna die in that. But nobody else is gonna die in that.
True. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
You know, he doesn't have to sacrifice himself for the greater good or anything like that. It's just 2 guys fighting it out, and he knows he has to win, or else those he loves will be hurt.
So, well, yeah, like X-Men, we talked about 2 years ago, was like this huge at the Ellis Island. It's going to be impactful for all, like it's going to make it's a huge apocalyptic event. No, this is just 2 guys find it out.
Yep,
and that personal impact. No, I appreciate that actually and experience it. By the way, that was one of my trivia things for James Cameron, so check that off the list. But yeah,
of Cameron specific,
which I had no idea until today researching that he had a effort to build or to film a movie.
DiCaprio at one point he wanted to play, and then he also wanted somebody else to play,
like Everett Furlong or something.
Yeah, Furlong.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, check that off the list. So, another item here was I totally forgot about MJ's terrible upbringing and her abusive father, and that to me it adds so much more to her story arc to come in later films, even this film a little bit. That connection that she and Peter have growing up next to each other without means and kind of on the wrong side of the tracks, if you will, or just, not very wealthy. And then I really like that scene in the backyard where they have the first discussion about kind of what's next in life for them. I totally forgot about that. The connection, she comes out, oh, you hear that? And it just, it was a really interesting take on that character where so much stuff after doesn't really talk about, I guess the Garfield ones were Gwen Stacy, and then even now with MJ, you don't know anything outside of her connection by proxy to the main character, where this actually fleshed out her background in a way that I really appreciated. And I guess I never appreciated it when I first saw it, but now thinking when Flash shows up with his new car, I can kind of see the appeal that she has in him because of a possible way to get out of that environment.
Yeah.
And then she's dated Harry, who's obviously super wealthy.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a tragic character element of MJ I didn't appreciate when this first came out. That seeing it now, I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, she's trying the best she can to make do with nothing and finding these avenues to possibly get into a better experience that by her choice then of choosing Peter, who's grown up in a similar environment, it makes it that much more impactful. Of this guy won't be my, golden ticket out of here. And this is going to be who I really want to be with for love. So anyway, I didn't put that together when I first saw it years ago.
Yeah, this is not any of my points, but I did think, Kirsten Dunst, who I think is a fine actress, she is useless in this movie. MJ.
Yes.
Until the end. The last scene is great, you know what I mean? Like all she is a couple lines and then she gets in trouble and that's all it is.
Yes.
It's almost a disservice to that character because to your point, she actually has a lot of depth. And she actually has a lot of future movies rectify that. But it's just there's nothing to MJ except for objectification and to
be put in peril.
Right. That's it. And you're like, oh man, that's kind of like a disservice to this pretty good actress who's actually done good things since then.
Yes.
But you're right, though, of just saying that is a good scene. They're good in it, but all of her lines I noticed were 5 words long.
Yeah.
And then it'd be what are you doing next year? Period. Wait. And it was nothing. There was nothing to her until closer to the end.
Yes.
So a little bit of a disservice on her, but they do rectify it as they go.
Yeah, there's a bit of the objectification of this aspect, and the pining of everybody for this woman.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, including me back then. I mean, I can't deny it. It's fine. That's fine.
No shame. No shame. Is that hashtag?
You are correct. I have no shame. So, you mentioned David Koepp. This movie is not poorly written. It's not great written. It is, I think, especially for a starter film, it's actually pretty impressive.
Yeah.
All of the information that's in there in a 2-hour film without a ton of origin story, build up to the spider.
Yep.
I think David Koepp has actually quietly put together a really good filmography. And I did not know much about him.
I only know Jurassic
Park.
That's all I know.
So he had written, these are just a few. He's got some stinkers on his, but most screenwriters do.
He's no Akiva Goldsman.
Yeah, that's right. He doesn't have an Oscar. I'd take David Koepp over Akiva Goldsman, though.
Absolutely.
He's got Death Becomes Her, which was before Jurassic Park.
Sure.
Jurassic Park, Carlito's Way, The Paper, The Shadow, which I think is a vastly underrated superhero movie.
That's a good one.
Mission Impossible. He also wrote Panic Room, which we will be covering next month.
Oh, yes.
War of the Worlds.
Sure.
He wrote Angels and Demons. He adapted that. He quietly has quite a few really good movies under his belt. He's got some other ones that you're just like, oh, that's not great. But I think that's as a screenwriter, right? You can't. Not all of them are great.
Yes.
And even Tarantino has some bad movies. So, anyway, I was like, I had this appreciation because I knew obviously Jurassic Park, like that was for us, right?
It's a great adaptation,
right? But then I go, oh, actually, you've got some other, and a lot of those are adaptations. Most of them actually are adaptations. So I don't know. I have this appreciation of David Cope now, where I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a solid origin story film.
Right. Without going too deep, and there's not a lot of layers to it.
Yep.
So it's not an allegory for something. It's not. It's just a story.
Yeah,
it's great.
It's
but
good.
very few. There's a few bad lines, but there's not. There's nothing that stands so far out. I mean, obviously the one you talked about with when the goblin breaks into Aunt May's house at the end and he's like, "Finish it."
Yeah.
That's pretty stupid.
Protect us from evil.
Right.
Yes.
But it's not entirely on him either.
No.
So I don't know. I was like, wow, he actually has some pretty good.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
It's not bad. One quick thing I'll say is J.K. Simmons is just perfectly cast.
He's so good.
As Jameson.
He's so good in anything he does.
Of course.
But oh my gosh, he is the perfect. Oh man.
But this is probably the first thing I can think of remembering that I would recognize him for,
sure.
J.K. Simmons.
Yeah.
In terms of his presence in a movie. I'm sure I've seen him prior to this as like a character actor, but this was the full on, oh yeah, you are fantastic.
The Green Goblin, you like that?
Mr. Jameson.
Made it up myself. These weirdos all gotta have a name now.
Mr. Jameson, Spider-Man.
Hoffman?
Yeah?
Call the patent office, copyright the name Green Goblin. I want a corner every time somebody says it.
How about green meanie?
Spider-Man wasn't attacking the city. He was trying to save it. That's slander.
It is not. I resent that. Slander is spoken. In print, it's libel.
Seeing it again, I always wondered how Peter and Harry ever became friends.
Yeah, there's no...
Harry went to all these private schools and clearly doesn't live near Peter.
Mm-hmm.
So how would you be in any way kind of in the same educational environment? How would you, even financially, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I assume they met... I don't think that wasn't his first day of school.
No.
He was just getting dropped off because he wouldn't take public busing or whatever.
Yep.
But yeah, I assume. But
yeah, it's watching it now. Like, yeah, I don't know how you ever became friends. So that's all good. Minor quibble.
Yeah, I keep thinking about J.K. Simmons. I just keep everything is good.
Like the 5-10 minutes in the movie he's in, he just totally steals it. Yeah,
I really was more affected by Uncle Ben this time than I seem to recall.
Yes,
the first time around, like I was like, oh. I mean, Aunt May in the current series is my favorite of these sort of like Aunt May's / but man, he was solid in those small scenes he had.
Yes.
Really, really good. And even at the end when then Peter says, I had a father and his name was Ben Parker. And you're like, oh, come on, man.
Yeah, when they're in the car and he's dropping him off and he totally is dismissive to Uncle Ben's efforts around trying to talk to him about like, it's what you do and your choices in life that matter. And that great. And he's like, you're not my father. And it was a great thing. That's the last thing you said to him.
Mm-hmm.
And then by not stopping the bad guy, he died. I totally agree. I was far more affected now because I think at the time when we saw it, it was like the standard, you knew the origin story of the family loss.
Yeah. So he was going to die because you knew he had to die.
Yes.
Right.
But the tiny things of how great, was it Cliff Robertson or whatever as the actor is as far as his, he has such charisma and the tiny scenes he's in with Peter that when he does die, and I totally agree. I was far more impacted now than I was 20 years ago.
I understand. You mentioned it, and I'm going to quote you, but Batman Begins got so much shit about Bruce Wayne changing his voice to something really low.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Yes.
Just so much crap.
Christian Bale, what a terrible choice.
Blah, blah, blah. This is stupid. He's got this growly voice. And yet, we watched this, and you're like, you're telling me you grew up next to this kid since I mean, I guess we don't know. If
They were
he
6 years
lived-
old?
Yeah, I don't know if he lived there at the time. Maybe he was visiting.
Sure.
You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. But either way, you've
Yeah.
known this girl since you were 6.
Yeah.
She's known you.
Yes.
And they don't talk that much. But obviously they've talked quite a lot in the
Yeah.
last X amount of time.
Yes.
And you don't know.
Yeah.
And not only that, when she gets mugged.
Yeah.
You
he
were,
goes to see her at the
you
diner,
were
whatever.
literally
Yes.
just talking to him.
Talking to this dude.
And 5 minutes later, after being accosted, he's talking to you in the same
Yes.
voice.
Exactly.
Not only that, he even says the same stupid, like he even alludes to a line that he just said.
Yes.
I was in the neighborhood, and you can't put it together. No wonder you're a waitress and can't, like, you're going to be an actress.
Yes.
This is not.
Yeah, you're terrible.
You are
MJ.
a waitress and you're going to be an actress. 'Cause
Yes.
You are a moron.
I'm so glad we talked about it. Yes, thank you for mentioning that, because we were talking about the movie like, yeah, all these movies get crap for having it be, especially the Batman ones, like, "Ugh." And this is like, yeah, he just was talking to you.
Yep.
And
Same
then he
with
shows
Norman
up.
Osborn. Willem Dafoe has a pretty distinct voice.
Yes.
And so
Exactly.
Parker can't figure out he's talking
know.
to
You're talking to
Osborn.
freaking Norman Osborn. Like, I totally agree. Like, they had such weird choices of having it be just, because you imagine people in your life that you're used to, even the physicality, the presence, you know, the stature of these people. A minute later, they show up in a different costume,
Mhm.
and I'm talking to you, be like, wait, Tim?
Yeah.
Hi.
No.
Like,
wait, no.
nope.
Which
Like-
even so, like Tom Holland as Spider-Man does that a little bit too, where
Yes.
he lowers his voice a little and he
Yeah.
does that. But God, it's so frustrating. I will say though, I appreciate that Willem Dafoe insisted that he be in that suit most of the time.
Oh,
It's
he
almost
is?
always him.
Yeah, you can see his mouth in
Yeah.
like the mouthpiece or whatever
Yep,
on the
and,
mask.
Apparently that costume had a ton of different pieces to it. It took like a half hour to put together and all this other stuff. And it was just like, he insisted though that he be in, so he ended up doing a lot of his own quote like stunts.
Sure.
So I appreciate that. Like,
Yeah.
So I mean, that is nice. I mean, that's cool. But no, the voices are just like, give me a break.
And to that point, I can appreciate that they were trying to go for the payoff at the end where Peter doesn't know that Green Goblin is Norman until that very last moment.
Yeah.
But from a connectivity standpoint, as an audience member, having such an expressive actor like Willem Dafoe hidden behind a plastic molded mask, terrible decision.
Well, and that would be fine if the voice had been masked a little bit.
Sure.
Like if he went out of his way.
Yes.
Seeing as he's apparently like this rich guy who obviously wouldn't want to
Yes.
ruin his legacy.
Yeah, he's
or
got a
whatever,
brand to
he would-
protect.
Yeah.
Yes, I just felt like, really? It didn't. I always felt like that was a really bad choice to have him be hidden behind that mask.
I kept thinking to myself, how in the hell does Willem Dafoe even become a famous actor? He is a weird ass.
He's like a Steve Buscemi.
Yeah, but
Right?
But Buscemi's never really been a lead. Like Dafoe has actually been
Sure.
in leads, and he's actually kind of like a
He played
sex
Jesus
symbol.
Christ.
Right? Like that's something.
Yeah.
You are a weird looking, weird sounding,
Yeah.
awkward toothed dude, and yet he's in a ton of movies, 4 Oscar nominations. Like he's,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like,
He's always good.
yeah, and he's really good. He's really good. But how
Yes.
the hell? I mean, it helped. I mean, Deer Hunter and
Oh my God, yeah.
Platoon and those kind of movies
Oh,
are.
Platoon, yes.
But he's really good. But he's just a weird looking dude,
He
man.
is weird. He is weird.
Although so is Tobey Maguire.
Yeah, let's stop really quick.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's unfortunate because I think Tobey Maguire is a fine actor.
He's
like
fine. Yep.
he's fine. I think back to Cider House Rules. I like that movie a lot. But man, he struggles at times to pull off like the heavily like weight emotional things. And when he's trying to cry, I'm like, oh, just stop crying. Yeah.
Yeah, I keep thinking of Tropic Thunder now because off we were talking about Tropic Thunder
in the
off
break,
of the and he's at the beginning of that, and they're like 5-time MTV Movie of the Year award winner Tobey Maguire. Like
That's right.
the only last sort of interesting nugget I have is it's not. I was trying to find it, but it was they did a really good job. Apparently, all of the CGI with Green Goblin had to be filmed on a blue screen because he's green.
Sure,
But because Spider-Man has blue on his suit, all of the CGI with Spider-Man had to be on green screen. So any CGI that had both Spider-Man and Green Goblin together on the same screen were filmed separately and clipped together because it couldn't be on the same background.
Sure.
Because you couldn't have
present problems.
Right. You would have all these problems. So, and I was like kind of looking for it. They didn't have a ton of them, but anytime they were fighting in real life with a green screen behind them, they had to have different, and then they clipped them together.
It didn't. It was no way noticeable.
No. The CGI was noticeable, but that's different. You don't need You don't need to worry about that. But I was like, I never thought about that.
I would have no idea.
I was looking for it.
But that's a good call. Yeah, I can see that now. That'd be a challenge.
All right, so we are going to move on then to our beer reaction segment that we call Drinking Buddies, the sequel.
Let's get weird.
This is where we remind you of our beers and provide you with our expertly detailed reviews. Tim will walk us through once again. Who do we got for our buddies?
First one we had was Town Hall Brewing out of Minneapolis. Their Hoppy Trotter IPA with some different options that weren't specified. I found it to be a 4 for me. It was a solid classic IPA style. It had some good flavor. They have a flagship IPA that I find overall, this was a kind of different variation. So I liked it. It was a solid standard IPA for me.
Yeah, there was nothing special for me. I had a 3.75 where I was just like, okay. If I were to order at the restaurant, I'd be like, okay, this is fine. But I would never seek it out.
No.
There wasn't a ton of flavor to it. It had when I first tasted it, I was like, this seems weird. But then it was totally drinkable and good. But I had 3.75. There was nothing. There's going to be a common theme on this for me. There was nothing fancy about it.
And that's the funny thing. So we'll get maybe a spoiler for the other ones to come. It was a funny thing having these themes be, your neighborhood type of brewery.
Yeah, these neighborhood breweries didn't stand out.
But that was such a great confirmation of like, this is just your neighbor kind of like local watering hole where you kind of would walk and be like, yeah, I'm not looking to seek these out in the store. But it was definitely across the board ones that go, yeah, if this is my local place, part of a flight, or I want that style, it's going to meet that need and not be disappointing, but just fine. Then we had Back Channel, their porter, American porter, 3.75.
Yeah.
Decent. It was a solid. It wasn't too kind of smoky. It just was a nice dark porter.
Yeah, I had 3.75 as well, and I think that's my... I don't like porters that much. They're not my jam, especially if they add too much liquid smoke to it. They can absolutely just go pound sand if they throw too much liquid smoke in it.
Yep.
Like Hammerheart and some of those are just like, this is too much. So I agree. I mean, this was one where I was like, okay, yeah, if you're going to pour this for me, I'll drink it. It's fine. I'll have one.
Yes.
It's not one like some other beers that are better. You might be like, oh, I could pound a few of these and be fine. But no, you have one and you're done.
Yes.
So yeah, 3.75 for me as well.
Then Unmapped out of Minnetonka, their Imperial Red Ale. Mm-hmm. That was a 4 for me. It was a nice style. It was not kind of your basic amber red, but a little bit of extra flavor to it. We've had, I think, far better ones. Certainly Fulton has one.
Libertine,
but yes, that's incredible. This was nice. It was pleasant. So a 4 for me. I liked it.
I had a 4 as well. Look at us. And I think I do think red beers are kind of like lagers to me, where you're like, that's fine.
Yes.
I mean, there's very few, like we talk about Libertine, that are like, oh my gosh, you gotta have this. But like, there's also a lot that are terrible.
Yes.
And so you don't see a lot of red ales lately.
No.
And so it is kind of cool to see them do that. That's why I picked it up. And I was like, oh, I mean, it's good. So I like it. It's a totally drinkable. But again, you have one and you maybe move on to a different style. It's not one you're going to have like 3 or 4 of or whatever.
No,
so
I agree.
But 4 out of 5 on that one.
That's good. Then we had Wooden Ship out of Minneapolis, their Coconut Milk Stout. I liked it. It was 3.75 for me. It was pretty subtle, the coconut. I liked that it wasn't overwhelming.
Yeah, coconut in quotes.
It was very, but you could tell it was there. It was not a basic milk stout.
Yep.
But it wasn't some of these where you go, oh God, this is so overwhelming type of thing. So yeah, it was fine. And Wooden Ship has been open for 6-8 months kind of thing. So they're still getting their stuff figured out.
But in early spring of last year. Yep.
Yeah, so it was good. I liked it.
I had a 4 out of 5, and I think I did because I was reminded how much I like stouts better than porters.
True.
Just as a base.
Yes.
So I was like, oh, if I'm going to do a 3.75 American Porter, I like this stout better, so I kind of bumped it to 4.
Yeah.
So it's like, I like that stout better, especially the milk stouts.
Yeah, the milk stout was good.
No, there was all 4 beers. There was nothing special about. I would never
Pleasant.
tell anyone to go seek these out.
No.
But all 4 are only available in tap rooms and growlers, so that was kind of the fun part.
Yes.
They're not like released, and so you kind of like, oh yeah, check it out, but get it in a flight or get a one pour, but there was no world beating beer tonight.
No, but I like this theme. It was a pleasantly surprising array of options. Just if this was your local place, you walk down or visit for dinner or some places that have an option, it's good.
Yep,
it's gonna be just fine.
All right, well, then we come now to our final segment of the night, which is Quiz Show.
The exciting quiz program, 21.
Where we search for trivia surrounding our subject film and try to stump the other. I do have a few. I'm not sure. I kind of wrote them down where I'm like, I don't know if I'll ask all of them or whatever, but I ruined one of yours.
I had 3, so now I got 2. James Cameron.
So I actually will go first because mine is similar to that. Because aside from Cameron... So, like, obviously Sam Raimi was not the first choice for this film.
Sure.
Or even the 5th choice, apparently.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, to direct this film, along with directors such as Jan de Bont, Roland Emmerich, James Cameron, Ang Lee, Tony Scott, M. Night Shyamalan, and David Fincher, who were all considered for this.
Oh, my gosh. What?
Yes. What, quote, kids movie director who himself started 2 other huge franchises was offered the chance to direct Spider-Man?
Oh, okay. Same time, would it be, Chris Columbus?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, because the franchise...
Reportedly, according to him, he was offered Harry Potter one day before he was offered Spider-Man. Or like vice versa or whatever.
Sure.
It was right at the same time, and he chose Harry Potter. Probably rightfully so, but...
I would say actually rightfully so. I think Chris Columbus is much... more...
Who does not get enough credit for starting that. I don't like Chris Columbus, but he does not get enough credit for starting that series.
It was I mean, we kind of crapped on it last year, but in terms of translating it to the screen, it's very kid-friendly, much better.
He wasn't even considered. He was offered.
Yeah.
He was actually offered Spider-Man, and he turned it down for Harry Potter.
And Raimi is much more of that. I mean, you think back to his movies from the 90s that are kind of like
Army of Darkness.
Yes.
Yep.
Cult classic ones. And it was, even I remember at the time when they announced that Sam Raimi was like, really? This is the guy you're going to have? Wow. All right.
Yeah, but it was ahead of the game, right? Finding some independent film director to kind of come in and bring
big budget
their art.
That's good.
So there you go.
The recently released Spider-Man No Way Home opened to an astonishing $260 million opening weekend, making it the second highest opening weekend of all time. However, when it was released, the original Spider-Man movie broke an opening record. What monetary threshold record did Spider-Man break for its opening weekend?
100 million.
Isn't that weird to think about?
Yeah.
That first ever astonishing.
Yeah.
100 million in a weekend? What?
Yeah, $100 million, first to ever do it.
And that was jaw-dropping at the time. So.
Well, yeah, both of us saw it on that opening weekend.
Yeah, we helped.
I kind of like some random ones. That one you'll never get.
Stump me. It's all good.
This is not the first film that Willem Dafoe and Rosemary Harris, who played Aunt May, have starred in together. What 1994 Oscar-nominated, including Harris as supporting actress, film starred these 2 actors?
94?
Yeah. They had only 8 years prior. They had starred together in another movie.
Oh my God. That he was in.
Yeah.
And she was up for an Academy Award?
Yeah, for supporting actress.
I'm going to kick myself.
I don't actually think you will, because I had to remind myself.
No idea.
So there's a movie called Tom and Viv. No. And you're like, no, I wouldn't. And then when I saw it, I was like, oh, I remember it just from an Oscar standpoint.
Sure.
But I did not place her in that movie.
Huh.
Tom and Viv.
Hopefully it was better than Deliver Us, Spanish it. Composer Danny Elfman has composed over 100
I just knew
movies.
you would ask something about the composer.
It's my jam.
Yeah.
And he's the main composing partner to director Tim Burton and Sam Raimi.
Yeah.
He originally came to fame, however, as the frontman of 1980s new wave band Oingo Boingo.
Mm-hmm.
This band wrote and performed the title song to what 1985 John Hughes science fiction action comedy.
Right?
Yes!
It's weird science.
I had no idea today. It's like, they wrote weird science.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was trying to think of
that's
like what
crazy.
Oingo Boingo is famous for. But,
Yes.
Okay.
Original name of them was the Knights of Oingo Boingo.
Oh, Lord.
I know. It's like, come on, people. But yeah.
Just like, nerd alert.
Yes. Oh, Danny. So yeah, that's good. Nice job.
Thank you. I don't know. So I have two.
It's all good.
Okay, one.
I love it.
You won't know that this is. Did you know? Reportedly, Sam Raimi is an avid comic book reader and collector.
Okay.
Care to guess how many he is reported to own?
Like a number?
A number of how many comic books he is reportedly like it's believed for him to be known. Like that he owns.
Is this like Price is Right? We're gonna say like $1.
Yeah, without going over.
Without
Maybe
going
right
over,
or
yeah.
wrong. I'm not even going to give you a
guess,
right or wrong answer because there's
10,000 10,000 comics.
Supposedly over 25,000 comics. He owns.
Holy shnikes!
Yes.
Jeez. That's why he gets the.
That's why he gets this.
Yeah.
And he's going to be Doctor Strange directing.
Oh, that's
Doctor
right.
Strange
Multiverse of
later
Madness
this year. Yep.
Nice.
All right. So the last one I have is because we like our Oscar trivia here. Tobey Maguire, Kristen Dunst are not Oscar-nominated actors. Maybe this year with Kristen Dunst, or Kristen Dunst.
Sure.
James Franco has 1, Willem Dafoe has 4, and Rosemary Harris, as discussed, has 1.
Yep.
But 3 actors in this film have Oscar wins. Can you name them?
I imagine the Uncle Ben guy,
Cliff Robertson does. Yes. Yep. Which he won. I can't remember the name of the movie, but it was the adaptation for Flowers for Algernon. Like that. It was a different name. Anyway, yeah. But yeah,
he's just a
50s or 60s.
Yeah, he seems like he was well established before this movie. So
Sure, yeah.
he must win.
Well, then you should be able to get the other 2. If you bring that one in, you should be able to get the other 2.
Oh gosh, don't shoot me. But
No.
of Oscar wins?
Wins. Yep.
Of the other J.K. Simmons.
Correct.
Yeah, for Whiplash.
Yep.
And I'm trying to think through all the different actors.
You were surprised to see this person in this movie.
Elizabeth Banks?
No.
No, Mike, she's not she didn't win anything. Oh wait.
There it is.
I
Come
can
on,
picture
man. I can see it in your face.
Good.
You freaked out about it.
She's right there in my face. I can't. I'm drawing a blank.
She even shares sort of a name with one of the villains of Spider-Man. Doc Ock.
Oh, Octavia Spencer.
Correct, yeah.
Yes, that's right. Thank you. I'm like, what was? Yeah, the
for
woman.
the help she won
checking
for
in.
supporting actress. Yep.
That was movie.
There were 3.
So good.
Yep.
Still stand. That's a hill I would die on. That freaking Viola Davis.
Oh, I can't even agree.
Should
I can't
Meryl
even agree more
goddamn
with that.
Streep.
Yes.
For free.
Who was good in Iron Lady, but come on. No.
Octavia. That's so awesome that I actually was watching. Me like, oh yeah, and that person,
Octavia
and that person,
Spencer's in this.
She's in this.
Yeah.
She won. Nice. That's a good one. That's good trivia.
All right, so that will actually bring us to the end of our first 2002 film and the end of our episode. Stay tuned for our happy hour later this month where we will talk about our first, maybe second with Zoolander, but slapstick style comedy in Super Troopers. We want to say thank you for taking the time to listen and for clicking that like or subscribe button on your devices. Find us on Twitter at years_beers and on Facebook, or head to 20years4beers.com. This has been 20 Years 4 Beers. My name is Steve.
I'm Tim.
And thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Much crap.
Christian Bale. What a terrible choice.
Blah, blah, blah. This is stupid. He's got...
Holy shnikes. Oh, Danny. Just enjoy it.